Good evening. We want to welcome you this evening. I want to invite you to come on in and find a spot to sit. Hard to come inside after such a beautiful day. Sun's shining. Just a little bit of feedback. Okay, well, it's nice to have everyone here so far. We also have online. We want to welcome our online guests as well. And tonight we were going to be starting kind of a fun project. What's coming? Over the last few years, a few of us have been asking, "Oh, what's coming next?" So now maybe we're gonna find some answers to that. What's coming? Look through the Bible. And we're excited to see that. Also, just want to remind you that I don't know if you've got it, there are some Bible symbols. Be kind of fun, maybe we do a little quiz, what's the fruit mean in the Bible symbols? Anybody? So you better get your card, so we got that. You can get that in the back. Any question and comments? Well, I'll bring that up again. We want to bring that up. My name is Luke Hyman. Some of you may know me, some of you may not, but kind of grew up in the area. And then left. Was in Alberta for about 9 years, and then came back. And so, yeah, it's been an exciting journey. Actually, was able to do a few projects even here in Enderby. One of the last ones we did was the MVBD. That was before we sold. That was MVBD, the school, and even the local grocery store, IGA. And we worked on the new Askews. That's going to be Askews now. So lots of different projects throughout the valley. Couple housekeeping items. We've got washrooms if you need to use a washroom. Maybe dial down your cell phone if you want to just put that on silent. That can be a little bit of a distracting. And tonight we've got special music by Emily Kunick. So we just want to invite Emily up. Then we're gonna have special music. Then I'm going to introduce the speaker. We're going to go right into it. We're not going to take a lot of extra time. We're going to take time to share what we're here for, and that's unlocking some of these Bible prophecies. So Emily, if you want to come up, and then we'll get into the music. Thank you. Thank you, Emily. That was wonderful. I just want to introduce our speaker tonight. Some of you may know him, some of you may not know him. Maybe this is the first time. And Matthew Schanche. He comes to us he's actually living in Coldstream right now, comes via Los Angeles. And he was a high-end real estate advisor working with some of the richest clientele in the world. He was a hardcore Bible critic. He did not believe in the Bible or the one set way to God, but rather believed many ways to God, identifying with the New Age spiritualism, thinking that all the world's religion basically said the same thing. I don't know if anybody in here can relate to that. I'm sure many, many can. But after over a decade of research, have you done a decade of research on something where you really research something? Over a decade of research into the lives of the rich and powerful and a close examination of the Bible and the world's religions, he left his life in LA, moved to Coldstream, came to Canada, and started working with a Christian ministry as a speaker of Amazing Discoveries. This is an online ministry and has its presence globally. He's now speaks on what he found and explains what's happening in today's world and what is going on and where it's going. Any of you wonder where things are going? I think that's why we're here tonight. We've been wondering where things have been going for a long time. So tonight, Matt wants to bring his knowledge, his research, and bring it to us in a way that can open and unlock some of these Bible prophecies, because the Bible has a lot to say about this. So I want to invite Matthew up. I want to thank you that you're here, and your wife as well. Thank you for coming. And before we start, I just want to have a word of prayer, and then we'll get right into this. Father in heaven, just want to thank you tonight that we can be here. We want to thank you that we have a Bible that we can look at and we can study, and that there are keys to unlock these questions that we have in this life. And so tonight I just want to pray a special blessing on Matthew as he brings these to us. He shares his testimony and he shares the current events that are happening right now in our world and how they relate and how that Bible will bring it to life. And so we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, all right. Is that better? All right, I hope I don't give you any feedback here. Before we get started tonight, I wanted everyone to kind of look around and introduce yourself to one another, because these are the very souls of the people who have the same spirit as you do. We are here to seek and understand the truth. So please look around, introduce yourselves. If you know each other, well, maybe it's not as impactful, but introduce yourselves. These are the very souls that Christ died for, that he wanted to know the truth. And he brought you here tonight for a special reason. You're meant to do something for his kingdom. You're meant to hear this information. I can't tell you what you're going to do with it or how it's going to impact your life or other people's lives, but I can tell you that God knows, and He's brought you here for a reason. I also want to say thank you to the church leadership and the support teams, because we could not do this without a willing church family. To the organizers, the marketers, Edison, Jonathan, Matt, clearly Pastor Kevin. There's so many people who put time and effort. Thank you, Emily, for your beautiful music and the talents that you brought. It's really not as common as you might think, as just saying, hey, you're a church, let's throw up a prophecy series, everyone's on board. You'd be surprised. Not everybody wants to have this information. I'm not sure why, but we're grateful to be sharing this information in this church tonight. The main objective we have with this series is to learn and grow. There are literally thousands of interpretations on what's going on in the world and why. And we're here to offer just one perspective, but that perspective is going to be based in history, and it's going to be based in a reality and a tangible substance that you can see in the world. And that's very important, because a lot of the perspectives are not giving you tangible material that you can take with you and use. As we test and get this information, I want you to take it with you and continue to look at what happens in the world, because there's going to be some things that we learn over the next few days and few weeks that aren't necessarily happening right now, but you're going to have the pieces to see what's coming and how it all fits together, so when it does, you're not bowled over with an emotional storm, because the world's going to be a mess. I also want to say, it's going to sound strange, but I love all of you. I'm a stranger to you, but we did all of this is because we love you. It's because we care about you. We care about our community. We're not trying to take this treasure of the truth that we have and keep it to ourselves. We came here to share this with you, and to be honest, I wouldn't be standing here giving this information if somebody hadn't done this for me in the past and impacted my life in a way that made me fundamentally change how I saw the world and what my role was in it. We have that opportunity to share with other people. You don't know what piece of information you have or what experience you have within this realm that can impact someone's life and change it towards Christ. It's the most important thing we can do. You know, we're going to kind of treat this a bit of like a court trial, because it's the truth that's on trial right now. If you ask 100 people what the truth is, you're likely to get 100 different answers. So kind of what I'm going to do tonight is present a body of evidence and let you all arrive at your own conclusions on what's happening in the world. I guess I'm kind of like the lawyer that's advocating one side of the argument, and obviously my argument is going to be in favor of one perspective. So even if you don't agree with the perspective, just take the information in, let it absorb, so you can take it with you and compare it with what you see in the world. Because what we want to do now is we want to start putting together the pieces of the puzzle to see how it all fits. Let's let the evidence determine where this all goes. So this series is really just a starting point. For people who don't know this information, this is really just a starting point. For people who do know this information, or parts of it, this is meant to help keep you rooted in the truth, so you don't get blown away by every wind of doctrine or news story that comes along that creates global or emotional response. Now, I want to share with you kind of one of the main sources that really impacted my life and helped me grow and study, and that was Amazing Discoveries. And the Walter Veit, who here has heard of Walter? Okay, so the majority of you guys have heard of Walter, and probably have had a similar experience, eye-opening experience that I did, in the fact that the information he shared was highly impactful for me and actually helped, again, fit the pieces of the puzzle together. So I encourage you, this is not the only source by any means, but I encourage you, we have handout materials, we have additional resources for you to continue some of your learning journey. But the real goal here is this is a starting point. And then from here, I hope that all of you are called or feel compelled to continue your learning, because it really is just the start here. There's so much to impact. We can't even fit it all in this one series. One of the main series that impacted me the most was Total Onslaught. Who has watched Total Onslaught? And so this series is going to be a little bit in that mold, where we're going to be looking at the reality of the world and the evidences that we find in there. And now I've been blessed to work at Amazing Discoveries, which has satellite television over North America, Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, the Middle East, Southern Africa. We've made tons of presentations available on our website for free. You can do some incredible studying there. We have bookmarking tools and notes, so as you're watching our videos, you can save things and take notes. Again, this is just one resource, but it's a resource that really impacted me. So again, I'm just here sharing information that has impacted me in the hopes that maybe it can impact you or someone in your life. You're also not alone in this search for truth. There are people out there right now who aren't in this room who want to know the answers and understand how these things fit together. So as we take this information, try to take notes, take pictures of the screens, do whatever it takes. If you think there's something that can help somebody, please use it, share it. This is all free. It was given to me freely. Freely do I give it to you guys. So what I say tonight and what I show you is not new information. You know, Matt's not coming in with fresh perspectives and independent discoveries. These are really just things that have been known for a long time, and I'm just here putting them together in a way that hopefully makes sense in a linear path. The information is available to anyone, and it really should be meant for everybody. There is no one in the world who should not understand these things. Now, does that mean everyone's going to understand it? Unfortunately not. But it is meant for everyone. This is not an exclusive thing. There's also no private interpretations you're going to hear from my presentations. I didn't come up with any of this. I'm not going to give you any, again, new information. It's really just sharing what has already been told. I'm also not attacking anyone. I'm not looking to instigate emotion where it's us against them. We are learning together, and this is meant to grow our relationship with the Bible and with Jesus. And if you're not there yet, if you don't have that mindset, that's totally okay. But this is the goal, is to just grow in the learning process and taking this information and processing the information with the spirit of Christ, of patience, compassion, nothing to be afraid of. So we just need to take this, because I know a lot of what's happened over the last several years have really divided people. But what we want to do is not get emotionally charged up and put into camps. We want to keep everything in context of the larger picture. And I'm going to do the best I can to keep this picture together. The type of information you're going to see is real-world data, direct quotes, historical data, archaeological data, biblically backed data, and at the end, I'm not going to ask you to believe me. I'm going to say, go do your own research. Go explore these things for yourself. As I said, open it up as a tool, as a door, as a door to walk through to find what's really going on, the depth of what's really going on. And so what is the reality of what's going on today? We've had, for the first time in history, a fully global event whose lives were impacted by the health crisis. I don't think there couldn't be a single hand that wasn't up. Everybody in the world was impacted on one level or another. Has that ever happened before? That everyone in the world, as big as the world is today, is involved in a single event? Certainly not. There are obviously wars. We've seen the Ukraine-Russian war. We see China and Taiwan on the threshold. Civil unrest here at home. We see an increase in natural disasters, cost of living inflation, and a looming financial crisis. I mean, the last 3 years have been pretty hectic. And it's making us all wonder what's really going on. Because society is not only dividing, it's getting increasingly violent. Not just being divided, but the two parties despising each other in amongst the division. Is this normal? Is this normal human progression, would you guys say? It doesn't feel that way. Or is there something else going on? Something has happened since 2020, and it's not just the health crisis. There are fewer and fewer organizations as businesses close up shop, and the organizations that are left have more and more control. So let's take a look at some of these. Who's heard of some of these organizations over the last couple years? The World Economic Forum, the UN, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization, the public health agencies in both the United States and Canada. These are authorities that have really become prevalent in our lives. And a lot of these organizations, because these aren't the only ones, but these and those like them are promoting this aggressive, sweeping global initiative that embarks on an impossible journey that they call a sustainable future. Who's heard sustainable a lot over the last number of years? It's become a buzzword. And when I say embark on this impossible journey, what do I mean, impossible? Who's heard of the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations? The number one goal, the very first one of 17, says, end all poverty in all forms everywhere. Well, let's start with an easy one, right? Let's eliminate all poverty before we can get to even ground. I want to contrast that with the statement that Jesus Christ himself made. It says, the poor you will have always with you. These are two contrasting mindsets. You can't eliminate all poverty and have the poor be with you always. That mixes like oil and water. It doesn't work. And this is really just one example of the two contrasting mindsets that are permeating in the world today. They cannot work together. One has to be true and one has to be false. This is just one example of many. But it's this idea of ending all poverty in all forms everywhere that ends with a situation like this. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. This is how we can change our world by 2030. Interesting. This is a real tweet from the Economic Forum, the World Economic Forum, and they have a plan in place. And it's kind of this idea where, because poverty's still around, you got to get rid of all of your personal rights, liberties, privacies, abundance in wealth, or whatever God's blessed you with, and give it all up for the hope of a sustainable future. And guess what? It's okay if you lose everything because you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Who's this character? Does anybody recognize this guy? Klaus Schwab, the unknown guy to supervillain since the pandemic has started. Who knew about him before the pandemic started? Not the same as do after the pandemic. One of the previously unknown faces now front and center in the world. And he actually wrote a book. You know, one of my favorite things about taking the evidence approach is we don't have to fill in the blanks. We just have to look at what these people are saying and doing and bring the information together and paint the picture of what's actually going on. So the theme of this book and the theme of his mindset that he teaches within the World Economic Forum, it says right there, a deep systemic and restructuring of our world. So we're going to hear this story of this deep systemic and restructuring of our world. We're going to hear that same story a bunch of different ways. So even though different people sound like they're talking about different things, we're going to come to see that they're all talking about the same plan. Same system, many different angles. Does that make sense? So let's see what Klaus Schwab has in terms of the perspective he has for our future. So a lot of tonight, we're just going to be going in and saying, let's take our perspectives out of this, and let's just see what the world and the future looks like from their perspective. Let's just put on their hats for a while and just see what our world is going to look like from their eyes. The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world to create a healthier, more equitable, and more prosperous future. The world as we knew it in the early months of 2020 is what? No more. It's dissolved in the context of the pandemic. What kind of changes? Radical changes of such consequence are coming that it's going to be so radical that it's going to change the way we determine time. It's going to be called BC and AC, before coronavirus and after coronavirus. Wow. So our world has shifted so much that we can identify where we are in history as a before COVID and an after COVID world. This is what they believe. Now, I want us to listen to Klaus Schwab as he tells us what the World Economic Forum and the Young Global Leaders program within the World Economic Forum is designed to do. It acts as a mechanism to recruit and to train world leaders before they're placed into power. Let's listen to what he has to say.
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Your Canadian cabinet right now has been hand-placed by the World Economic Forum. Did Matt say that? No, Klaus Schwab said that, right? And not just the Canadian government, but also who? Putin, Merkel. Are these prominent players on the world stage today? Interesting. And what's especially interesting is his book said we need radical changes to the world. Well, what better way to start these radical changes than to train young people in a mindset, and once they're graduated and trained up and believe what you believe and believe in the solutions that you proposed, you place them strategically in governments around the world. That's a pretty good strategy. I actually know another organization that does that, but I'm not going to get into them tonight. Now, what I find interesting about these organizations, not just the World Economic Forum, but it's this mindset that's act now or everything will be destroyed and your lives will be ruined. Total destruction. We're on the brink of a polycrisis. How worried should you be? This is straight from the World Economic Forum website. And, you know, it's really, it amazes me. They now need to tell us how worried we should be. Because if you don't know, if you're not worried enough yet, don't worry. The World Economic Forum will tell you how worried you need to be about these polycrises. And what they say is you need to be afraid. Why would they want you to be afraid all the time? Because the fear state is the preferred state of mind. Why? Because a person does not operate on normal rational level when they're in the state of fear. They operate from a place of emotion. And when someone's operating from a place of emotion, they tend to choose much differently than they would under normal circumstances. Wouldn't you agree? So the polycrisis thing is funny because as if the world weren't crazy enough, they said the collective vocabulary stored in the world's dictionaries didn't appear to hold a single word to sum up all this strife. So guess what? The World Economic Forum invented a new word. Polycrisis. So you got them to thank. You know, the world's gotten so crazy that we need to start inventing new words to make sure you know how afraid to be. And this is, as they say, it's a cluster of related global risks with compounding effects. So what they want is more power, fewer rights equals peace and safety. Does that sound about right? More power, fewer rights, more peace and safety. So let's give these groups more heavy-handed power. Now I want to start, again, from their perspective, taking a peek into what they think the future is. So what is coming next according to the World Economic Forum? Looks like we lost sound. Let me go back to another one. Let's see if this works. No, we lost sound up here, guys.
We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
The COVID-19 pandemic has shaken our economies and societies to the core and shown us how vulnerable we are to biological threats. In the digital world, similar risks are being overlooked right now. A cyber attack with COVID-like characteristics would spread faster and further than any biological virus. Its reproductive rate would be around 10 times greater than what we've experienced with the coronavirus. To give you an idea, one of the fastest worms in history, the 2003 Slammer sapphire worm, doubled in size approximately every 8.5 seconds, infecting over 75,000 devices in 10 minutes and almost 11 million devices in 24 hours. Fortunately, at least until now, cyber attacks have not impacted our health the way pandemics have, but the economic damages, and therefore the impact they have had on our daily lives, have been equal and sometimes even greater. You see, the only way to stop the exponential propagation of a COVID-like cyber threat is to fully disconnect the millions of vulnerable devices from one another and from the internet. All of this in a matter of days. A single day without the internet would cost our economies more than $50 billion, and that's before considering the economic and societal damages should these devices be linked to essential services such as transport or healthcare. As the digital realm increasingly merges with our physical world, the ripple effects of cyber attacks on our safety just keep on expanding at a faster pace than what we're preparing for. COVID-19 was known as an anticipated risk. So is the digital equivalent. Let's be better prepared for that one. The time is now.
Interesting. Klaus Schwab said this type of pandemic would make COVID-19 look like a small disturbance. Did you hear the solution they had for stopping the cyber attack? It wasn't to stop the hackers from infecting all the systems. If you listen closely, the solution in there is actually quite scary. The solution is, in the event a cyber attack starts, they have to help us protect our safety and security, shut down the internet for us, shut down all the devices for us. So the world isn't stopped in this scenario from the infection of the virus. The world is shut down by them turning off the light switch, so to speak. How do we know if there was a virus or not? You know, they ran a similar exercise to this. This one's called Cyber Polygon. But they ran a similar exercise to this just before Cyber Polygon that simulated a global pandemic based on a respiratory virus. That one, this other one we'll have to wait and see. What about Bill Gates? What does he say is in our future? This video is from October 2022. Before or after COVID? It's after. Let's see what he has to say.
Are we going to see another pandemic before we are able to beat this one?
Well, we'll have another pandemic. It will be a different pathogen next time. We'll have some rebound. This pathogen, we don't have a tool to do eradication. We'd like to have a new generation of vaccines that would be suitable. There's already a lot of work that's been done on a universal flu vaccine, and the data on that looks very promising. Although in the future, some degree of mask wearing probably will be indicated. It took us 2 years to be in oversupply. Today, there are more vaccines than there is demand for vaccines. And you know, that wasn't true. And next time we should try and make it, instead of 2 years, we should make it more like 6 months.
Huh. So from Bill Gates' perspective, are we going to have another pandemic? Yes. Are we going to have more health choices to make? Yes. Did you see how he worded it? You know, we didn't get it right this time, but next time, we're going to get it right. Next time, 6 months to make these vaccines, not 2 years. Gates released this video shortly after this convention they had, where they did a full simulation on what the next pandemic would look like. This is from October 2022 as well. Let me just add this. This is all, you'll see on the bottom, it says this is fictional. But they had to write the script, hire the actors, set the stages, and create this whole thing as if it were real. This is how far, when they do these simulations, this is how far they go with these.
Officials in 2 Latin American countries alerted the WHO of several outbreaks of a new infectious disease that's mysteriously appearing across the region. Severe epidemic enterovirus respiratory syndrome 2025.
What year?
Over the past 6 weeks alone, there have been 500 confirmed or suspected cases reported. The virus could cause a severe pandemic if early containment and mitigation efforts are not successful.
There is no substitute for national leadership.
It's important to support the local response or the national response.
And if needs be, regional solidarity first.
At this stage, communication is key, and communication should include not just scientists with data, but also social, religious, and political leaders.
I'm very sorry to say that in 2025, we need to strengthen the health system.
WHO needs to be a voice for the voiceless.
No one is safe until all of us are safe.
As of today, there have been an estimated 1 billion cases worldwide, with more than 20 million deaths, including nearly 15 million children. Countless millions are alive, but left with paralysis or brain damage. The most successful countries are those which invested in preparedness and trained for this moment years in advance. This included having full-time pandemic preparedness and response teams, which conducted detailed operational planning and routinely tested those plans through exercises and drills. If more countries had participated and heeded the guidance, the toll might have been much less.
Wow. It's quite the story. We need to give these global organizations, as they mentioned, the World Health Organization, we need to give them a lot more power. We need to give these heavy-handed organizations even more power, because if not, 20 million people, including 15 million children, they said, would be dying from this pandemic in 2025. And what's really scary about that is the ones that survived suffered permanent motor function loss and brain damage. So from their perspective, what is our future outlook? Looking pretty rosy or pretty bleak? Not great. And the answer to this was, if you heard, none of us are safe until all of us are safe. Which means, if you look at how China rolled this out, locking people down in complexes if there was one case somewhere in the building. This is the heavy-handed powers that they want to give to these global organizations. The Biden administration was about to sign, I actually don't know if they did, was about to sign an agreement with the World Health Organization that pretty much would have given them total autonomy over how to define a pandemic, what the emergency operations would be like, and they're able to tell you how long it lasts, independent of the American government. But who are these leaders that are running these organizations? Do we really know? Have we spent, in the midst of our busy lives, time actually looking at who these people are that we want to give more heavy-handed power to? How far are they willing to go? Most don't realize Tedros Adhanom, the head of the World Health Organization, he's been riddled with scandals and violence. Says Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, as well as being the first World Health Organization director without a... Oh, wait a second. This heavy-handed organization called the World Health Organization that we want to give more power to, the guy at the top, he must be the brightest doctor of them all. He doesn't even have a medical degree. Also has somewhat of a political background. Oh, so we have a politician in there. Tedros happens to be a member of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, a communist revolutionary party that came to power in 1991. People say, oh, you're being dramatic. How about this? The Terrorist Research and Analysis Consortium has the Tigray People's Liberation Front listed as a terrorist organization under left-wing Marxist socialist communist policies. He wasn't just a casual member of this group. He was the health minister and foreign minister. He was a senior official, cementing his credentials as a member of the circle of this corrupt group, which atrocities read longer than you could imagine, which include many, many health-related issues with the Ethiopian people during his time as health minister. But hey, let's put him at the head of the World Health Organization. You know, this is not meant to be an attack. I started off by saying these are not meant to be an attack. This is just to learn and inform so we understand the people that are at the heads of these organizations that are making decisions about our lives. Most people didn't believe me when I said this, but early on in the pandemic, one of the proposals at the World Health Organization was to go into homes and start taking infected people out. And I had people say, you're lying, you're being dramatic. Well, let's take a listen.
In most parts of the world.
Oh, I forgot I had a responsibility there. I got to turn my computer up.
In most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner.
Did you know that that was on the table for COVID? If the next one that Gates is talking about is as bad as it says, do you think this solution might come back up? It's a possibility. This is the reality of the situation we're living in. I just want to share with you guys what these people are thinking. But it doesn't just stick to the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum. Let's see what the UN has to say. They say we're on a highway to climate hell. Here's again, is the if we don't act now, act urgently, everything will be destroyed mentality. But don't worry, they have a plan called the Sustainable Development Goals. Now we saw the first one, it says no poverty, which obviously is pretty challenging. Also no hunger, also pretty challenging. Good health. I can get behind good health. I'm for good health. You know, when you go on their website, you can click on these and it opens them up and gives you more detail. When you click on good health, how do you think they define good health? Vaccines. All the world leaders seem to be operating on this same script. And the focus of these solutions are most often in relation to civil and religious liberties, the removal of such. And when I say the UN has a 2030 agenda, I get people that say, oh, you're a conspiracist. Well, no, I'm not. What do they call it? Transforming our world, the 2030 agenda. What am I supposed to call it? It's an agenda. And they've made their plans very clear that this decade between 2020 and 2030 is a transition period. We are transitioning to this new world. Almost every major leader in the world has given some speech at some point in support of this agenda. So there's only one plan to everything. We better hope it's the right answer. Let's see if the world leaders got the same script. This is from COP27. Who heard about COP27? All the world leaders go to Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. And you had two components. You had the civil component and the religious component. On the religious side, they're introducing 10 green climate commandments. On the civil side, they're urging the world to instill these 2030 UN agenda goals. Let's see if they got the same script.
The science is devastatingly clear.
The science is clear. Its message could not have been clearer. The IPCC issued a stark warning to the global community.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
Let us not take the highway to hell.
We are on a highway to climate hell.
Let us earn the clean ticket to heaven. That is our responsibility.
We have to make vital progress by the end of this decade.
Did they get the same script? Boy, it sure sounds like it. And they're promoting that this is the only way out. It just so happens that with this new plan, the only thing that's going out are civil liberties and religious liberties. Who's heard of Build Back Better? That's another buzzword. And their catchphrases. You know, Joe Biden did his whole presidential campaign on this Build Back Better slogan, but it was being used by the United Nations as long as 10 years ago. So who came up with the slogan first, Biden or the UN? Or those in the UN? Well, let's see if the world leaders got this script.
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better. It's my plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, written after coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Wow. Same script? All over the world? Sure looks like it. Build Back Better is the Great Reset, is the 2030 agenda. It's the same plan from different angles. Do you see what I'm saying? So the political arm does the Build Back Better, the financial arm does the Great Reset, and the UN and governing global bodies focus on the 2030. It's the same plan. They're talking about the same thing. And it's this plan that causes friction between those who uphold value in personal civil liberties and civil rights and religious liberties and the powers that be. That's what leads to things like the truckers' protest. It's a plan that has the common good over the rights of the individuals. This is the mindset that they're teaching inside of that Young Global Leaders program. This is what leads to the Dutch farmer protest. Who heard of the Dutch farmers protesting? And they're protesting because the sustainable model doesn't allow them to grow food anymore. To me, not being able to grow food, that doesn't sound very sustainable. So the plan that they have in place is clashing with the real world people who have to live in the world that they're trying to change. And it's causing this friction. But it's not just global manipulation, unfortunately. It is also local. Not just top levels, but it trickles all the way down. This story is a local news story that's issued about trust and disinformation and how dangerous they are. So listen to this.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility
is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
The El Paso, Las Cruces communities.
Eastern Iowa communities.
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country. Plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 It's almost comical, right? I agree. This is extremely dangerous for our democracy. Because the question is, how is it all connected? What's coming next? Because it seems as though there's this plan in place to fundamentally change our world. In fact, they said the plan has already started. What did Klaus Schwab said? The world is not the same since 2020. There's no doubt something real is happening, but what is it exactly? Where is it leading? The real question is, who is behind it all? And how do we tell the truth from error? That's what Bible prophecy does. Amongst all the noise that we're hearing, Bible prophecy cuts right through it. All the questions that we seek, that we're looking for, Bible prophecy unlocks. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to unlock what's really happening. So the question becomes really, can the Bible be trusted as a good source of information? Has anyone in here gone from not believing the Bible to believing in it? What changed your view? Somebody? Prophecy, okay. Anything else? Prophecy is pretty powerful. The Bible can reach people in so many ways. I was a very harsh critic of the Bible. My original intent for the engagement with the Bible was as a means to disprove it and expose it as a fraud, to be quite frank. But learning Bible prophecy, what it was, how to understand it, and what it said, it changed my life forever. I wouldn't be standing here without this aspect of the Bible. And that's what I want to share with you. And it's okay if you're not a believer right now. I know what that's like. I know what it feels like to sit in the seat of skepticism for many, many years. And I can relate to what seem like many reasons for not believing the Bible. But regardless of whether you believe the Bible or not, we're here together in the same spirit to want to understand truth. Because who here wants to believe a lie? Who here wants to intentionally be misled? None of us. So we're here in the same spirit, whether we take this as valid or not. But we're going to share with you why we think it's valid. The goal for us by the end of this series is to be able to distinguish the real from the fake. And we want to hone our skills so we become experts at detecting the deception that's in our world and the deception of what's coming, because it's going to be incredible. And why do I say deception? Matthew 24:3. You know, we're not the only generation that's ever lived that's wanted to know what's going to happen in the end and how it's all going to go down and when it's going to come. Here the apostles come to Jesus privately, and let's look at the account. And And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. The very first attribute of what Jesus talks about is deception. This is not going to be a military battle that we're expecting to see. You know, I have a lot of secular friends that are seeing, you know, World War III coming and all these terrible, you know, military conflicts. It's not saying that that isn't possible, but when Jesus says at the time of his coming, the main attribute, the problem with what we'll be dealing with is deception. This is going to be a battle for your minds. The Bible helps us because it gives us this detailed outlook of the future, past, present, and future. And what it says is, you are the object of a war going on right now. That you are the most important things in this war. That you're valuable, I think, beyond what most of us independently think of ourselves. You are more valuable than you could possibly imagine. In this war, the Bible gives us detailed instructions on who to watch out for, what they're going to do, and what we can do to get through it. And then it paints this beautiful picture of the characteristics of the end time conditions so we can help determine if that's what we're dealing with or not. Here's an example of that. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Now, for those of you who don't know the Bible, I don't expect you to understand what this is saying. All I'm asking you to do is remember that the Bible says there's 3 entities that we're supposed to watch out for as we come to the close of verse history. The dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. And it tells us who these characters are in terms of what their spirit is like, what they're about. It says they are the spirits of devils. Working miracles, going forth to who? So these 3 entities are going to impact and try to influence who? The same guys we just saw talking about a plan that they have for the world. The kings of the earth. And the whole world. And what is the goal of these 3 entities? To gather, to bring everyone together under one system. It says, and how much of the world? All the world wondered after the beast, and after they did that, what did they do? They worshipped the dragon. Okay, we may not know what these mean yet, but we're starting to at least understand what the Bible perspective is saying. You got 3 characters. These 3 characters are going to go to the kings of the world. These kings of the world are going to adopt a mindset, and the mindset is bring the world together, and when they bring the world together, the whole object of the plan is worship the dragon. Interesting. It also tells us some descriptions of what this system is called. And when we see in Revelation 17, we see the culmination, this final system. We're in the final stages of Earth's history, and it gives us a name for this system. It's called Babylon the Great. It tells us this system, when it comes together, that all the leaders of this system will have one mind, and anybody who doesn't follow this system will be what? Killed. Is this serious? If the Bible record is true, and we find out who these people are, well then yeah, this is pretty serious. Because if you don't go along with it, they're going to take your life. There are only 2 classes when it gets to this stage of Earth's history. Those who are deceived, and those who are not. And if you're not actively working to be part of the not deceived, you have no chance. You're going to be in the camp that's deceived. Our job is now to identify this Babylonian system. What real world power is the head of this system? We must be able to identify it, or what's the point of the warning? How can we prepare for the deceptions if we don't even know the entity who's pulling it off? So these Revelation verses are examples of Bible prophecy. They're meant to be understood, they're meant to be applied to the real world, and they're meant to help us be guided through what this world is the wilderness. We're in this wilderness of sin, and we are trying to be guided through, like the ancient Israelites, through this wilderness to the other side. Now, there are a lot of people who say, don't pay attention to prophecy, don't try to understand it, don't worry about it. But what does the Bible say? Again, this is just one view, but let's just take the Bible for what it says. Despise not prophecy. Test all things. Hold fast that which is good. Mean, hang on. When you find the truth, hang on to it. Don't let it go. This is one of the most distinguishing factors of the Bible, and was something that really stood out to me at the time as I was a critic, to say, well, this may be the boldest claim, one of the boldest claims I've seen. Because now it's saying, take the text, and when you understand it, take it off the pages, go out into the real world, and test it. See if what I'm saying is true, is what this is saying. And so now it's our job to find out if this system of Babylon is objectively true. Is the plan that's being pitched by the world leaders the same that ends in this global Babylonian system that the Bible talks about? And to be honest, there are clues of this answer everywhere. But I'm going to start locally. All of it started within Los Angeles. This is where this process really started to uncover these pieces as I started participating in these circles. They call LA the City of Angels. I came in believing that, and when I left, I said, that's true, but it wasn't the angels I thought they were. Here's my silly example from the Los Angeles Times, one of the properties I'm allowed to show. In 2007, I graduated university in Illinois. Then I moved to Los Angeles, and my goal was to become a billionaire real estate mogul. It sounds so lame hearing it now. But that's what I thought. This property in particular was sold to an NFL owner. And that gentleman has an interesting past, but I'm not going to get into it. I did all this because I'd bought hook, line, and sinker what the young people today think that success is in the world. And success is ultimate materialism. So I started to surround myself with the people that I wanted to be like. I wanted the private planes. I wanted the private islands. I wanted houses all over the world. I was eating in the places they were eating. I was talking and hanging out with them, all in the same places. So I got a chance to peek inside of the lifestyles, the habits, and the practices of these people. And as I moved sort of up the chain over the years, I found myself in some very interesting situations, and it really revealed a lot to me. And I find that I personally observed that there were two tiers of wealth. You have the wealthy and then the super wealthy. The wealthy often are on this material train still. They're acquiring things, they're partying, they're doing all the normal stuff that the average materialistic person would do if they got all the money. But what I found inside of that group is they were often very depressed. All the materialism, all the stuff that they got, at no point brought any substance of joy or real peace or serenity. And that kind of troubled me, because it's like, well, you work so hard, you give up so much to get that. Isn't that what happiness is? Isn't that what fulfillment is? But that's not what I observed. But then you have this second group, which is the super wealthy, and this group is hyper spiritual. And they pay homage to this system. And they do so in many ways. And I'm just going to give you one example. Who knows what this symbol is? Yeah? It's the square and compass of the Freemasons. We were developing a property. It's got to be about 40,000 square foot property in a private gated community, actually only private gated community in Beverly Hills. And my client was one of the wealthiest Republican donors in the whole country. In fact, he was the one who funded, I don't know if you guys have heard of The One in Bel Air. It's like 500,000 square foot house. But he wasn't the builder. He was the guy who gave the builder the money to do it. And as we're developing the property, he has about a 30-foot high doorway, the front entrance, and he asks to put this symbol above his door. And I'm curious, so I ask, what's the end game with that? And he says, this is a guy who hosts foreign dignitaries, who hosts presidential candidates. He has sleepovers with major political party members. And he said, I want them to know they're in good company. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, maybe I found something here. Maybe this is the ticket to the material success that I was looking for. Maybe this was the entrance into the life I actually wanted. Then I started to find something interesting. I really started to dig in and pry and say, okay, well, wait a second. I'm seeing here that a lot of the wealthiest people and most powerful people in the world belong to, if not this organization, ones like it. So why are the people who have all the material goods, all the things that any person could want from a financial or material perspective, why are they, with their own free choice, choosing to go join one of these organizations? So I started digging some more. Has anyone here been to LA? Few people. Does anyone know where Century City is? Most people know Hollywood, they know Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills is kind of over here. My offices were right here. And you come down Santa Monica Boulevard, and this is Century City on the way to Santa Monica. While most people don't know what Century City is, it's kind of the hub of where all the business and entertainment deals actually get done. This complex here is the Century Park complex. Oh, my clicker doesn't work on the screen. And you see kind of the Twin Tower style. The building with the cube in it is the most prestigious talent agency, sports and entertainment agency in the world. It's called CAA, Creative Arts Agency. And this building, if you ever wanted to get a hold of someone and they say, contact my people, these are the people that you contact. It's a very unique structure, but it's designed in the whole fabric of the complex. There's something designed in it that you would only be able to see from the sky. Who here can see the symbol that my client wanted above his doorway in the fabric? Interesting. As a guy who is in a lot of development projects, is this accident or is this intent? That looks intentional. And who is able to catch the secret piece that I haven't highlighted yet? Pointing right through the center of the cube, in the middle of the road, is an all-seeing eye that acts as a fountain on the ground level. And just so happens to point right through the center of that CAA cube. And at certain times of year, the sun rises up, illuminates right through the center, right through the cube, and illuminates the all-seeing eye. This is why they put the gap here. This is where the sun enters through, right through the middle. So I started to realize, because these are just examples of things that I'm finding, that what my client was into went way beyond just him. Other people take this very seriously. So I started looking for other landmarks. And it took me to downtown LA. This is the downtown LA Library. It's the oldest building in downtown. And when you look at it closely, you'll see that it's designed as a temple of illumination to the god of Freemasonry. The library documentation shows that Bertram Goodall, the 1926 architect, he worked with a guy named Lee Lowry to create this illumination through the light of learning, but what they did was just build a giant temple to their god. It has spiritual and esoteric, that is secret, not exoteric, but esoteric, secret symbolism all over the place. My wife, Courtney, and I, we spent a whole day going around videotaping and looking at the different components in there. While we can't go through all of them tonight, I want to highlight a couple that are very, very interesting. At the very top is this pyramid with a arm, golden arm sticking out holding a torch. Let's see what it says. Sitting at the top of the library is probably the most common tiled pyramid topped by a golden hand holding a torch. Other than being beautiful and decorative, the library's apex has a deep occult meaning, clearly inspired by what? Freemasonry. First, in occult lore, the pyramid is considered to be the ultimate symbols of the mysteries. It represents the transition from the material plane over to the spiritual plane. From the square base shape base of the pyramid, representing the material world, as it rises in the mathematical perfection of 4 triangles leading up to the pinnacle, representing divinity. According to many occult researchers, the pyramids of ancient Egypt were most likely used for the purposes of initiation, where candidates were led to a path of illumination. If you ever peek inside any secret society, not just the Masons, what they're teaching are the ancient mystery schools 100% of the time, and they're always teaching this secret path to illumination. Starting to realize why the rich and powerful might be interested in these things, because they say they have the secrets to immortal life. So above the pyramid is a golden hand holding a torch. There's a reason why this symbol is sitting above all others in the building. It is a perfect representation of the building's philosophy. What is that philosophy? Luciferianism. Is this us just making conjecture, or is this fact? Is this real? This is real. And it's not surprising, because the guy who did these statues, Lee Lowry, he also did the ones at the Rockefeller Plaza in New York, where you see the Prometheus statue, the golden one here, as he's holding this torch of illumination representing divine knowledge and wisdom from heaven. But you also have the God of wisdom on the left-hand side, or I guess maybe your right-hand side. That through these lightning bolts, these rays of light, which is synonymous with Lucifer, is said to have brought wisdom down from heaven. Now people I've showed this to said, Matt, how do you know this is Lucifer? That could be anybody's arm. You're making things up. Let's take a closer look. What does Lucifer mean? Light bearer. If you look closely, right under the wrist, right here, is the Greek word lichnos, which means source of light. It represents the secret source of light that illuminates these ancient mystery schools. So, from their perspective, who's the source of light for the mystery schools? Lucifer. In Latin, the word Lucifer means light bearer. In occult symbolism, light and fire esoterically represent divine knowledge and enlightenment. And holding a lit torch, therefore, represents man's ascent to divinity through the mystery schools. Okay, well, now I'm starting to get why a billionaire wants to get in on this, because he already has the world. What he doesn't have is divinity. It doesn't have eternal life. Through these, basically, godhood status is what they're trying to achieve. The Gnostic interpretation of the story of Genesis considers the snake Lucifer as a positive figure. In occult teachings, Lucifer represents the ascent to divinity using the cognitive powers of man. We're going to see this as a theme. And it says below, opportunity to erase the curse of mortality by direct encounter with the divine. So Lucifer, in this occult knowledge, as they represented in this temple of understanding or learning, it represents man's path to becoming God. So I'm not one to really hold back and like keep something to the end. So I'm just going to tell you now, every single secret society, whether they're the Masons, the Templars, the Rosicrucians, Golden Dawn, Skull and Bone, every single secret order is teaching the same thing, the illuminated path to eternal life and godhood. And when you peek behind the curtain, this is the God they're talking about. Now I want to see if you guys caught another little detail here. Look at the very bottom of this statue. What do we see? Serpent. So if there was any question on who this represents, you could say it's somebody else, but you're going to have to come with a whole lot of proof to prove it, to offset what we see here. So, okay, now we're starting to get a picture here. The torch at the top is the illumination. It comes down into the building, and on the sides are these huge stone reliefs that give you all the names of these famous historical figures that they're telling you this is the means by which the secret knowledge got passed down through the ages. These are the names through the eras that kept secret for the initiated to receive the information. The great thinkers of the world. But remember, that's not for you and me. It's for the initiated only. The western facade of the library is another nod to the mystery schools. Two human figures are with the names Phosphor and Hesper underneath them. This apparently minor in detail is perhaps the most significant. Phosphor is the Latin word for the planet Venus. It is also referred to as the morning star or the bringer of light. Who's that synonymous with? Lucifer. What about Hesper? Referred to Venus again. In the evening star. It's called the false light, the star of the morning, or Lucifer, which means light bearer. So both of these figures have different names, but they represent one entity. Who is it? Lucifer. You're seeing a theme here. Masonic authors such as Albert Pike, Albert Mackey have referred to the Luciferian path and the energies of Lucifer to describe the search for light. The term Luciferian is therefore used in a scholarly sense to bringing enlightenment. The Prometheus statue, the Rockefeller Center, it's the same thing. All talking about the same system from different angles. As far as Albert Pike, and actually let me go back. The story of all of these figures, when you trace them back to the Tower of Babel, and the reason this is important in these mystery schools, because when was the last time the world was under one system? The Tower of Babel. This plan that they have, that we seem to be peeking in now, seems to be pointing to them wanting the same thing. So we're going to have to go back and look really closely at Babylon. Now, Albert Pike is kind of like a prophet in Freemasonry, and he kind of wrote their handbook called Morals and Dogma. So anybody says, oh, Masons don't even care about Albert Pike, it's not true. There's a 30-foot stone statue out in front of the Masonic Temple on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. And along with it come a number of other large stone statues that people drive by every day, coming and going, don't even think about what they're seeing. But these are the secrets passed down through the ages, and they put them in stone. And Albert Pike lived in the 1800s, so he was very significant within Masonry. Now, what I found was the names on the outside of this library that anyone could see were inside of the Masonic Temple in San Francisco that no one is allowed to see unless you're invited. And they invited me in. So I started taking some pictures. And I found that the names on the outside of the building and the names on the inside of the Masonic Temple are the same. So are they paying homage to the same system, yes or no? Absolutely. This is in the Masonic Temple in Washington, D.C. It is a incredible property. Honestly, go Google the photos. This is one of the premier Masonic temples in the country. And there's this beautiful stained glass window inside. And it states clearly the Masonic philosophy on how to deal with their role, their obligation in the world. And it relates to instigating radical change. Who did we hear earlier was interested in instigating radical change? Klaus Schwab. You'll notice at the very bottom of the stained glass window is the Latin phrase ordo ab chaos. Who knows what that means? Order out of chaos. This is the methodology of the Masonic and the secret society network. Again, it doesn't really matter. Masons are just the best example, the easiest to relate to. But it doesn't matter. Change the name of the secret society. The methodology is still the same. It's creating a problem, reaction, solution methodology. Fear state, create the crisis, give them the plan for the change that will save everything, and you have a formula for how these societies create social change. At the very top, you see the phrase fiat lux. Does anyone know what that means? Let there be light. Lichnos, source of light. Coming down the rays, let there be light. Which light is this? It's the light of Lucifer. Underneath that it says Dios memque just, God and my right, which is essentially translated, there's a number of ways. So 33rd degree Freemasons, they get a ring at the 33rd degree. And if you ever meet one and they have the ring, ask them to take it off and read what's on the inside of that ring, because you'll have this Dios memque just phrase inside. And what it is it means that they have a divine right from God to rule over you. Do you know that? Anyone here know any Masons? In the back there? Well, some interesting questions you could ask them. Now, do you put this on a stained glass window because it looks pretty? Or are you doing this because you're paying homage to the system that they're operating in? This is a system, order out of chaos. And we don't have to go too far to connect it back to Babylon, because outside of that Wilshire Masonic Temple in Los Angeles is about an 80-foot high stone relief that go through the kingdoms of the earth and say how the mystery schools passed these down through the ages. And at the very bottom is what? The city of Babylon. And actually to it, this one here, the city of Jerusalem. And oddly enough, Babylon conquered Jerusalem. So this relief is saying at least, at minimum, these mystery schools and these ancient secrets, they trace back to before 600 BC. You'll notice the cross in the middle with the black and the white. This is, you'll find black and white all over Masonic temples. It's the light versus dark. It's the path that the initiate takes of illumination. And at each stage, there's 3 stages within Masonry. At each stage, the initiate continues the process until they reach this secret enlightenment. So what you're seeing here isn't a cross for Christ, which they'll say that it could represent. You're seeing the Gnostic or secret path to illumination that initiates have to take. And they just put this stuff all over the place. You don't have to look far. At the very, very top, I should have zoomed in on this, but I didn't. You'll see a very large G with a sun symbol in a black circle. I can't get into what that means tonight, but you'll find an awful lot of those inside of churches around the world as well. This is the north entrance to Hollywood off of Highland, coming off the 101. And it acts as the north entrance to the city of Hollywood. So in order to enter, for those who are Bible knowers, what does the north represent in the Bible? That's God's territory, right? That's where God lives. At the north entrance, the entrance of the city of Hollywood, you have to enter through a Babylonian gate. Remember, they believe this Babylon is the true universal truth that has been lost. They call it the lost keys, the lost truth theory in Freemasonry. Because the world, since it's been separated from the Tower of Babel, it lost all of this secret knowledge. And it's there, they see it as their divine job to bring it back to a one world system. So oddly enough, the Babylon Gate at the north, the Freemason symbol, Century City, to the west, and the downtown LA Library forms a triangle, the bookends of the entrance to the city of Los Angeles. Is this intent or is this accident? Seems like intent. But let's look outside of Los Angeles. Do we find this anywhere else? Let's go to the U.S. Capitol building where laws are made. And when you go inside of the building, you'll find a relief of the Babylonian king Hammurabi. What's interesting is you go to their own websites where you find this information, and they say that this Babylonian Hammurabi code, because that's what Hammurabi's notable achievement was, he created one of the earliest legal frameworks in known history. And they say that this framework was key in establishing the principles that underlie American law. So does Babylon have an influence in the laws we experience in the states today? Absolutely. What about the U.S. Supreme Court? This is where laws are interpreted and determined. You'll find on the south wall, there's a relief of all these historical lawgivers, and there's Hammurabi. But it's very interesting that on the Supreme Court's own website, it tells us some very important information that will become more relevant as we go through these talks. Who gave Hammurabi this law of Babylon that stood as a pinnacle of legal code for ages? It says the code depicts him as receiving the law from the Babylonian sun god. So where did Hammurabi get his code? From the sun god. We're going to look a lot into that later. Let's see if there's any more homage being paid to Babylon around the world. How about the European Union building in Strasbourg, EU Parliament building, was built as an homage to the Tower of Babel. In fact, one article says, pairing the European Union's new facility in Strasbourg with the medieval painter, couldn't tell you what that is, the Tower of Babel, you can almost assume that the designer intended to dare critics to draw the obvious comparison. Again, they're not trying to hide these things. So what we need to do is try to get to the source, the root. Why are they uplifting all these things? Who's seen this poster before? This was put out by the European Council. Now, the Council of Europe. Does anybody know what the Council of Europe is? It's the human rights organization for all of Europe, including every single member of the European Union. And they put out a poster of the Tower of Babel that says, Europe, many tongues, one voice. Now that has implications as well that we're going to point on in future lectures. But one of the more interesting things is the use of the five-pointed star. There's only two meanings to a five-pointed star, one up and one down. That's it. The one up represents man in his proportions. The one facing down is a symbol of the devil. And it's one thing you have offset stars and one kind of happens to be upside down. Look at every single one of these stars. Perfectly flipped over. There is only one meaning to these symbols. That's why symbols act as such an important mechanism to identifying what we're actually dealing with, because you can trace the meanings of these symbols back through time. And let me tell you, the symbols and their meanings have not changed. This many tongues, one voice also is going to come into play as we look at future Bible prophecy and what happened to the West after the Empire of Rome fell and nations rose up. We'll look at that later. Who's heard of the CERN project in Switzerland? CERN is the largest joint scientific project in the world that they've ever embarked on. So this should be the most non-religious, secular project ever made. It's a physics laboratory where they send particles around a whopping 17-mile circle, 600 feet beneath the surface. What are these guys trying to do? They're smashing the particles together to find the God particle. They're trying to understand how God started creation. But CERN's scientific, not religious, right? Well, interestingly enough, prominently featured on the grounds of CERN is the statue of Shiva the Destroyer. This serves as an homage to the spiritual basis of this scientific organization. And it's not just destruction as we'd normally think it, but this is about transformation, regeneration, rebirth, renewal into a new world. In Hinduism, they see the universe as cyclical, going through periods of creation, preservation, destruction, and Shiva is the agent of all of that. Another interesting point is where CERN is located. It's on a town called Saint Genis Poilly. Now, when you break down what that means, you'll find that it stems from the old Latin word apollolicum, where back in the Roman era, there existed a temple of Apollo the Destroyer, and the Romans believed that this was the gateway to hell. CERN is built on top of that temple site. Apollyon, Mystery Babylon, these are names synonymous with this dragon that we're going to identify. Apollyon was the destroyer. Mystery Babylon is the power that destroys at the end of time. Even though they're different entities, same system, different angles. When you go inside of CERN, you'll see this particle accelerator that they've designed in the form of a Buddhist Dharma chakra. Now, they named this project Atlas, and when you look at who Atlas was in Greek mythology, it has a lot of carryover with Babylon and the Tower of Babel, both of which trying to use their own means to reach divinity, to reach the heavens. And this Dharma chakra from the Buddhists is the wheel of Dharma. And this represents essentially a law, a way, a path to enlightenment. You know, Tower of Babel, Bab-El. Bab means portal or path. El means God. So this is a pathway or portal to God. This Dharma chakra is a 8-step process, a portal, a pathway to God. Different names, same system. So the common theme that we're going to see amongst all of these groups, these systems, these beliefs, is that they have this secret path to God, illumination, to eternal life. Now this, I'm about to show you, this is not a joke. This is not staged. This is real. Someone stayed too long one night at CERN and caught something happening out in the yard in front of this statue. Now CERN is a very heavily secured facility. Every single person who participated in what you're about to see either worked at CERN or worked with CERN. Think about that for a second when you watch this. There's no sound. But what you have is a group of people coming in front of the Shiva statue in black robes. They're going to derobe a woman in white, lay her down, and sacrifice her in front of this statue. You can't break into these places and just do this on a prank. Why would people at CERN be doing this? Why would they have this statue? And for people who say, well, maybe it was just a joke, I want to show you something else and how we know which God they're paying homage to. Here are some of the project's names inside of CERN. The Solar Axion Telescopic Antenna, the High Acceptance D-Electron Spectrometer, the detector with lepton, photon, and hadron identification. Satan, Hades, Delphi. Satan, I don't have to explain. They actually changed this because they got so much flack for the Satan. They changed it to Cast, C-A-S-T. Can anyone make the connection of how that still relates to Lucifer? He was cast down from heaven. Hades was the name of the god, and Delphi was the sacred sanctuary of the god Apollo, who is also synonymous with Shiva. Certain demonic acts to tell us who they're paying homage to. But it's not just CERN. Did you know the largest telescope in the United States is at the University of Arizona in Tucson? The Large Binocular Telescope Near Infrared Utility with Camera Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research. Well, what's the acronym they use for that? Lucifer. And they really try really hard, too, because I was trying to see how this worked. I'm like, okay, no, you got to go all the way down to the U. But people are saying, well, maybe they don't call it that. They absolutely call it that. Here's the Popular Science article that says the Lucifer instrument helps astronomers see through the darkness to the most distant objects. In that article, it says, yes, it really was named after Lucifer, and yes, there really are biblical meanings and connotations behind it. This is not an accident. So why are scientific organizations so religious? It seems strange, yet it's consistent amongst scientific projects and government projects across the world. So speaking of big global organizations, this takes us to our final example tonight. The United Nations. Does the United Nations have any evidence of homage or support for this one world system that harkens to Babylon? And I think you guys already know the answer. This is in New York. It's the Security Council chamber. And where leaders of the world come together and determine our futures. They say the public meaning of this mural is to symbolize a promising future of peace and individual freedom. This room has been called the most important room in the world. It's about 68 feet long and about 34 feet high. And they commissioned a Norwegian painter to paint this. And I got curious because I actually didn't know as I was putting this together. I'm like, I knew it was a Norwegian painter, but who was the painter? Did he paint a bunch of stuff like this, a bunch of images like this? And it's strange to see that none of his other pictures look like this. In fact, the painter did mostly portraits. So it begs the question, this mural, was it the artist's interpretation or did someone give him instructions? The evidence gave him instructions. Now I want to break this scene down for you, and we don't have all the information to fill in the blanks, but we're gonna give it a start. What do we notice right in the center of the scene? It's a phoenix. When you look at the phoenix, it represents renewal, rebirth, as well as the use of sunlight rays to illuminate it, to bring it to life. The Egyptians say that the phoenix represents a god who rose to heaven in the form of a morning star. Well, that sounds an awful lot like Phosphor and Hesper from the side of the building, or the illuminated torch. The symbolism is what helps us tie these things together. And this imagery is filled with important symbols and meanings. So let's review a couple key elements. What color is the phoenix? White. What does white represent? Purity, holiness, goodness, godliness. And this phoenix, he's rising from skin, not ashes. Traditionally, the phoenix rises from the ashes. What creature do we know that sheds its skin? A serpent. That's interesting. And here he is standing in the middle of the scene, being worshipped almost as God. But notice what the phoenix is standing on top of. Below him is a dragon-looking creature with a sword pierced through him. Can anyone guess what the dragon is made of? Iron. For those of you who already know Bible prophecy, what do we know about a dragon-like beast that received a wound by a sword from a kingdom made of iron mixed with clay? Interesting. I wasn't going to point this out because we're not far along enough, but there's a man standing on a tail of this dragon beast. That's from a war. And for those of you who know your Bible prophecy, how did the dragon beast of iron and clay fall? French Revolution. Military might. And this dragon-like beast eventually transforms into this beautiful phoenix. I also want to draw your attention to the lower half of the scene. You'll see everyone down here looks like they're in really bad shape. This is the people coming up from the darkness of the old world. This is the old world, the old system, into the new light of the new system with happiness and peace all around. So you see there's a transformation happening from the lower half of the scene to the upper half of the scene. Now, this blue banner that ties them all together actually has a UN logo on the flag. So we see whatever they're coming up into is what seems like a joyous world united under one banner. Now, I also want to draw your attention to these people right here. They seem to be all coming towards the phoenix, and they all have children with them. So whatever these entities are, they're leading with their children up to this phoenix. Now, I have some speculation on that, but I'm not going to share that because I like to stay away from speculation. But you can see the faces and the makeup of these creatures are very, almost disturbing. But the most important piece of this whole scene exists right above the head of the phoenix. I want you to notice how the head of the phoenix carries over into this scene, showing that what we're seeing with the phoenix is connected to whatever we're seeing above it. These two scenes are related to each other. Now let's zoom in on what looks like a marriage ceremony. Now remember, this is in the UN Security Council building. This has been there since the 1950s, and no one seems to talk about it. Go back to my notes here because I have some good questions for you guys. I want you to observe this scene. Where is this scene taking place? It's like a garden. Now I want us to observe it from top to bottom. We see a boy in a tree in green with fruit, and he's handing down fruit to a little girl. And the child, the boy, is intertwined into the branches, kind of like a serpent. There's a man and a woman kneeling beneath the tree, underneath the serpent, in what looks like a wedding ceremony. The offspring of the man and the woman is the child beneath. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Based on your best guess, what garden is this referencing? Eden. So what tree would this be? The tree of knowledge of good and evil. And who would that little green clothed boy be? Satan. And who would the little girl be? Eve. And who's that little boy hiding behind that tree? That's Adam. And why are they children? Because Adam and Eve were innocent at the time that they fell. Who are the man and the woman and the child in the scene, and what is the marriage that it's referencing? We're going to have to come back to that later. But for those who know their Bible prophecies, what does a woman represent in Bible prophecy? It's a church. There's something going on here that we're going to come back to this at the end of these lectures and detail it a bit more. Whether you're not a Christian, whether you're a believer in anything else, the objective reality is that these esoteric forms and secretive symbols are pointing to one outcome. You may notice, what shape is this scene in? It's the shape of a womb. This is the birth of a new world. And they're showing us exactly what their plans are. Does this evidence match the other evidence we've seen this evening? Yes. And what system is it uplifting? Babylon. And this secret path to learning? At the start of this presentation, I mentioned the goal was to show what the world leaders and what the various global powers within the world were planning and their perspectives, what they're doing outside of us. So whether we choose to believe this or not, this is happening. And they have a plan for the world. So if you're in the world, you are part of this plan. The truth exists outside of us. We can understand it, but we can't define it independent of ourselves, meaning you believe what you believe, and you believe what you believe, and you feel what you feel. You can do that, but the objective reality is this is happening, and we are going to be a part of it. The overtones of everything we've seen tonight have been intensely biblical, but shrouded in mystical symbols and illustrations. which is exactly what Masonry, Skull and Bones, and all these secret societies pay homage to, even in government buildings and entire city landscapes. And many more hours of evidence could be shown proving this all to be true. In fact, I have an encyclopedia of 500 pages of all the secret societies in the world, and all of them say the same thing. They're all paying homage to the same system. Every secret order has the same plans behind the scene, and it's this plan. So the best way for us to move forward, starting tomorrow, we're going to look backwards at the system of Babylon and understand from the source of what's really happening. You know, so many people over the last couple of years have come to me with all these theories, and you know where they always end? It's the powers that be that are in control. The secret powers behind the scenes. Yeah, but who are they? What are their identities? How can I know who they are? This leads to crazy QAnon theories, which are more of a distraction and in fact cause the truth harm, because then people think you're just a conspiracy theorist and they lump everything together. A lot of people think power and money is the goal. They say corrupt politicians, banksters, corporate conglomerations, they're behind it all. While they're very much part of this system, it is not the head of this system. Nor is the secret societies in and of themselves the head of this system. In fact, I liken the secret societies to be the worker bees of the queen. So we need to get to the source. And we're going to do that by going back to Babylon. And at the end of it, you're going to tell me who's behind it all. I won't even have to tell you. And it ends like this. There's no sitting on the sidelines. There's no saying, I'm not going to choose a side. Because the Bible tells us what's going to happen. It's going to cause all, both small and great, rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand of the forehead, and all the world wandered after the beast. So if you don't believe this yet, if you do believe it and you have people that don't believe it, they're going to be part of this whether they choose to or not. And if they don't know they're part of it, they're going to get swept up in the process. But don't be afraid. Be prepared. Let's see what Jesus Christ tells us. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Be not afraid of them that kill the body. I have told you before it comes to pass, that when it come to pass, you might believe. This is God's love. He's trying to reach you. He's trying to reach the people who don't know this before it's too late, to understand that the situation is real and that it is dire. God can navigate us through this, but you have to have a relationship with Him to do so. Otherwise, we're going to be swept up by this coming storm. We cannot do this by ourselves. But with God, all things are possible. So I ask you guys to come back tomorrow. Join us at 2:30. Thank you for joining us tonight. And remember that when you seek the truth and you find it, the truth will set you free. If you would, please bow your heads with me for a quick prayer. Father in heaven, we're so grateful to be able to come and speak these things freely, to share and show the things that are very real in our world, whether we choose to believe them or not. And Father, we see very clearly there's a war brewing, and it's for the mind, it's for the heart. It's to decide and choose and discern between the real and the fake, the truth and the error. And Father, I just beg you, please give us the courage and strength to keep searching, to dig deep, and when we find it, to not ever let go, but to hold on to it and to share it, to spread the information, that others might know this, Lord, because you've given this information to us freely, so freely should we give it. And Father, I ask for a special blessing upon each person here, that they feel motivated and inspired to go share with others. And if it be possible, Lord, that you save each and every one of us and bring us home to you, and that you may return soon. In Jesus' name, amen.
I just want to thank you, Matt, for opening up and sharing part of your testimony, how God led you to even open this up. So lots more coming. Want to remind you, tomorrow, 2:30. I know it's in the middle of the afternoon. You may have some things planned. Get up earlier. Get them done early. Be here at 2:30. And we're going to look at Daniel chapter 2. We're going to look at Daniel chapter 2. Also, There's a few index cards back there. You can see Jamie on the way out. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, write them down. We'll address them. We'll either address it on the website, we'll either address it in person, or we'll address it here if we have time. So please, any comments, and we'll see you tomorrow afternoon, 2:30. So have a good night and drive safe.